Welcome to the Lock-In Podcast. This is episode 28 for Wednesday, 21st of October. As of tonight, Ireland is going into level 5 of living with COVID. That's what they're calling it now, rather than lockdown. That's a 5K rule unless you're going for food or essential work. Otherwise, work from home if you can. The Lock-In is our podcast for how we live now. We started this way back in April and we didn't really think it was going to go on as long as this. I suppose we didn't know what was ahead of us at the time. But we've settled into a weekly routine, and you can find out all about this show and find past episodes and subscribe for future episodes going out weekly every Wednesday at thelockin.ie. This show is brought to you by Black Knight. We're the Irish web hosting company, but we don't talk about our work or our products on this show, except that I do want to say that one of the things that we did when we started this podcast was we stopped doing our other podcast, our business podcast, the Black Knight podcast, which I'm delighted to say has resumed. We're going to keep it going on a monthly schedule. I'll tell you more about it later on. The first episode of the new season went out earlier this week. Now, while we don't talk about our products or services on this show, we do talk to our friends, and we talk to people who do things and organise events that we support. A few weeks ago, we spoke to Una Feely from the Indie Cork Film Festival, and today we're talking to the organiser of another Black Knight sponsored event. That's Eoin Kennedy, the organiser of Congregation, the unconference event held each November in Cong, County Mayo. Eoin Kennedy, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Con. Pleasure to be here again.
Owen, we've been involved here at Black Knight with Congregation for 8 years now, and I've been looking over some of the terminology that we use when we talk about Congregation. We've described it as an intimate event, as a bijou conference, a small event in a small village in County Mayo. You get small groups together in what are called huddles. I want to say to you now, Owen, intimate, huddles, cuddles, anything like that. These words are haram. This is forbidden. This is not kosher in our current climate. You can't do this stuff anymore. I presume you got the message about that.
Sure did, Con. We got the message quite a while back because approaching the summer, it was becoming quite clear that things would not go back to normal. And even if they did, there was a duty of care not only to people who come to the event, but to people who lived in the village. And the last thing I wanted Congregation to be was the Cheltenham of the events world, to become a super spreader. So in the middle of the summer, we took the choice to kind of move it into online, which was a hard decision to make on some fronts because outside of the huddles and the sharing of information, and how people work together. A lot of the really special part about it was that people had to take the trip to go all the way to Cong and, had this amazing experience of a small village setting for it. But when I look back on the pragmatic things of once people were in the huddles, that part could be replicated. And the other thing that went through my mind, and it's something that's going through a lot of event organizer minds, is that if you stop for a year, it can sometimes be really difficult to get things back on track. And, God knows what next year looks like, whether it would be in, continuous semi-lockdown or semi-social distancing world for quite a while. So rather than skip the year, we decided we would compromise and go and do it online this year.
Even a month or two ago when I was talking to you, and I know that you've been planning and preparing for this, I think you were still hopeful that there could be a blended or a hybrid element to it, that some people perhaps who live locally could gather in Cong. With level 5, that's out of the question. You're 100% online now.
Yeah, it's 100% online. So what happened was that a lot of people book in a year in advance, as in they booked their accommodation a year in advance. So for some people, even though they were going to be participating via computer anyway, regardless of where they were were still going to come down to Cong. So in that semi-blended structure, we had organised for people to use the community centre where they could log on online in a very socially distance-friendly environment and with proper broadband. So they wouldn't have been sitting in huddles right beside each other. Strangely, they would have been sitting in, 2 to 6 meters away from each other in Cong in a community centre. So it would have been a funny experience, but congregation is always going to have funny experiences.
Well, I come from a place in East Kerry, Owen, that you may have heard of, called Sliabh Luachra, and it's a place that's famous for music and tradition and things like that. And a famous expression, I don't know who to attribute it to, is they say, Sliabh Luachra is not so much a place, more of a state of mind. And maybe congregations a little bit like that as well. We can work in cyberspace, we can live and we can communicate and we can engage. I have a sense that congregation online can probably work out quite well.
I think you can. It's to me, it's the only leap that people have to make is that the world that the people have occupied for the last couple of months has been very Zoom centric or team centric or Google Meetups or Google Hangouts. And there is that sense of being exhausted by that process. And what I've found for recently with some evening time gatherings that I've gone to is you feel tired going to it, but you feel really energized afterwards. And it's a little bit like the gym where, you kind of go, oh, let's go to the gym. But if you go to the gym, you'll have a hell of a lot more energy than before you kind of went. But I think it also works for people in that it makes it easier for them to jump in and out. So just say for some people previously who couldn't commit to driving all the way down to Cong, they missed out. Or people who kind of went, I could, but I can't do the afternoon, I can only do the morning. So this makes it a little bit easier for people to dip in and out, and probably makes it even more relaxed and casual. The people can jump into certain Zoom breakout rooms if that's the technology we eventually use. The plan is to, if they need to dash off to do something, they can come back again. So it's not like it's not school. You're not committed to sitting at your computer for X amount of hours on the Saturday, the 21st.
Over the years, Owen, congregation has had different themes. You've explored different themes every year. You've explored the theme of ideas, technology, community, things like that. This year's theme is Society 3.0. Had we had the pandemic when you selected that theme, or was it there already?
No, it was selected pretty much after congregation last year. So we pretty much agreed to theme by November, December of last year. So a couple of months before COVID kind of really attacked us. But it was based upon, and the themes for congregation have been kind of driven by what people wanted to talk about. And every year it's kind of got broader. So as I said, last year was community, and that kind of naturally led on to, but if we're talking about community, we should really look a little bit broader and a little bit further outside of that. And it's moved quite a lot from the very granular themes of social media and technology, which were the earlier kind of years. So this year, Society 3.0, it's a funny one when you select as a theme, because so the initial reaction was twofold. One, a group of people kind of went, really, what's Society 3.0? Or what's different?
Well, the first question is, what's 1.0 and 2.0?
Exactly. And then a totally different group of people who kind of went, we're already in Society 5.0. so there's a very different take in general. So
how do you understand it?
So my understanding of it, and this is the funny part about it, that it's all of our own unique takes on it rather than the gospel, is that Society 1.0 is when we moved from an agricultural kind of based society into more of an industrial society between Society 2, and now we're moving into a society that has technology embedded into it. But not just that, there's other mega trends like mega cities, mass migration, new modes of economics being kind of dreamed up, the rise of the Chinese kind of economy and the alternation of the current kind of American thought on what society should and democracy should and shouldn't look like. So it's all of those kind of changes kind of happen together. But technology is kind of obviously a big part of it, but it's not the only part. And it's interesting to see even submissions that have come back in. Technology is a piece of it, but it's not the only thing that people are kind of talking about. So when I was looking at the theme, for me, it's really broad. And I think this year is probably more relevant than ever, because now we've been given that opportunity to change. Like, change is already happening; it's being forced upon us. So now that we're in that mode of change, why stop? Why stop our thinking? Like, this is a unique opportunity to change a lot more things than just take, for example, remote working. And rather than working from home, does it kind of change the way we manage people? Does it change the way we reward people? Does it change the way people live in communities outside of remote working? So the change should be broader than just having to sit in front of your computer at home rather than sitting computer at work. I was hoping people would look at things like the role of women, with the past and the future, and how that's kind of changing now, and what's the take on people in terms of equality. Immigration and migration, the integration, how open people are to it and issues that it pops up. Religion, like what's happening with that. Massive kind of changes there in terms of, people, if they're in a habit of going to mass, they're certainly out of it now, but, does it become more important, less important? Suddenly the lack of priests, what does that mean for our society? And in fairness, that they do have a role in community. Like, what does social structure look like? Unfortunately, in COVID, we seem to be seeing an even bigger division between the mega rich and the poor, and the middle class kind of declining almost. So it's kind of, what should the societal structure look like, and what should democracy look like? In my own submission, I'm reflecting back into like how little I think about how I would like my world to be structured, and how much people thought about it at the very beginning of the Irish state. They thought through what they had a vision, and they thought through how that vision should be manifested and what would need to be done to do that, and how little I personally kind of think of it. When it's easy to moan about these things, but it's hard to kind of think about them. And like what happens with the world of commercialism. The resources are dwindling. Are we going to reduce consumption, or is it going into hyper consumption? How does business work? Because business is an important part for our society. Is it, how's that governance going to change? How are we going to pay people? Is that going to be different? Do you have a borderless society, between countries? What's going to happen with megacities versus countries? And that's an interesting debate now, especially because up to now, it being the prediction of megacities like growing, populations of 9 million plus, and what they look like. They're essentially mini countries. Where now we're looking at maybe a reduction, or not a reduction in it, but a change to that, where it's forced regionalization almost, where people are moving outside the cities to live in the countryside, all the way to how we talk to each other, how we communicate, how we treat each other, what the family structure looks like. Architecture, how do we, crime, punishment, justice, how we treat all that to the arts. So, as you can see, I'm kind of treating it as broad as I possibly can, and throwing out the net and just seeing what comes back.
It's extraordinary, and I know that's the approach you take every year, Eoin, to it, but this year is especially extraordinary, and I think we are living in revolutionary times, and happening faster than we could ever have imagined possible, and what the pandemic has wrought in terms of the change in society. People are struggling to keep up with actually imagining what's going on and what the next few months are going to look like, not to mind the next few years. As a case in point, I just saw an article by David McWilliams the other day where he was talking about the end of the tyranny of the commute, and how property values and things like that are all going to be reimagined in that context. Another thing I think that independently of the pandemic, but certainly exacerbated by it, is the polarization in society. As you mentioned, inequality, the haves and the have-nots, and the very I think we imagined the internet was going to bring everyone together, but in actual fact it has caused the most extraordinary polarization in politics that you can see in the United States and in Britain in particular, and in other countries besides, not just and our own, I think, is not immune either. I want to just I'm kind of conscious, Eoin, that this podcast is maybe reaching a new audience. And while we've been involved with Congregation for 8 years or so, some people don't know what it's about. It is an unconference in that there's no podium with speakers here and an audience there. Everyone is a contributor, everyone is a participant, and you can't buy a ticket. You have to blog your way in, as you used to say.
Yeah, so you put it all very succinctly there, Con. So it's rather than buying a ticket for the event, people earn their way in with a written article or an audio or a video article on the theme of Society 3.0. So people send that to me, that gets published on the website. Once that's published on the website, that is their ticket to attend on the day. And then on the day, rather than splitting up rather than the usual structure, which is one person talking to everyone, we split people up into groups of 10, about 10 groups of 10. Each of those has a chairperson who moderates the discussion, and we call those huddles. So in each huddle, 3 people get to present for 10 minutes of their topic, followed by about 5 or 10 minutes Q&A. So, and then we rotate and people move after an hour. 3 people speak at each huddle, and then they move to a new group of people, a new group of 10. 3 people present, and we keep going until everyone's presented. So over the course of the day, everyone gets a chance to present, and you get to meet as many people as they can possibly organize. Because my take is, sometimes when you're in a room, I often think back at college where I was in, some lecture halls with 300-400 people. And I knew about 4 out of that class. And then I was in other classes of about 30 people, and you knew 30 people. So, this perception that it has to be bigger to meet more people is sometimes a fallacy. So I try to break it down so that they are intimate enough huddles in that, they're trusted places to have a conversation. And that's really, although I talk about the mechanics are just to get people to think about the topic in advance. Yeah. And really what Congregation does gives them permission to let their minds go a wandering on that topic and to explore with other like-minded people.
We should point out to people as well, it's all very well explained at congregation.ie. That's where you can submit your own entry for the event if you want to take part. It's where you can read other people's submissions. And the one piece of advice I always give to people in relation to Congregation is do browse through the site beforehand and figure out who you want to talk to before you even get there, or who you want to hear, who you want to listen to, because it is that kind of intimate event. It's going to be very interesting to see how it works online, Eoin, and we're delighted to be involved with you again this year. Can I ask you, how are things with yourself? How's life in Cong, County Mayo? And as I understand it, it's bringing changes for everybody. You already worked remotely and independently. Your work has changed a little bit, and your life has changed a little, I think, in the last couple of months, you were telling me.
Yeah, it has. So the COVID's been I lived in Dublin, moved out of Dublin about 10 years ago to Cong in County Mayo. And the biggest difference I've seen with COVID, outside of the awful human tragedy of it, is that on the work front, is that when it started, a lot of traditional work kind of just ceased. Anything that had a decision attached to it kind of just literally stopped. And then naturally a huge amount of migration onto Zoom and running Zoom webinars, which everyone is attuned to. But to me, the biggest change was almost a change of perception of remote working and remote workers, where before, if I'd applied for a job, I would have been qualified as other people, but it would be problematic that I couldn't have been in an office in Dublin Monday to Friday, 9 to 5:30. And it was seen as kind of, well, you're not quite as good as everyone else because you can't do that. The biggest change with COVID has been literally overnight that has changed, but actually it flipped, and in the classic pendulum swing, it didn't go to equilibrium, it went all the way to the other side, and I'll explain that. So because me and a lot of other people like me, like yourself, we're used to working remotely. So, we have the proper IT setup. We're probably lucky enough to have a proper home office. And more importantly, we know how to structure ourselves in that we're used to the psychology of working remotely. We know we can collaborate and using all these amazing collaboration tools, but we know we're self-starters and that we can get up and just get on with jobs and report back in and be part of a team. Where I've seen a lot of people who've worked in offices with all the usual infrastructure around them struggle with that. And I really feel for people who are working from kitchen tables with poor broadband, because that is torturous. That's not remote. That's not the remote working experience, or shouldn't be. That is working from home in a crisis. And it's not the same thing, where when you have the infrastructure set up and your mind is focus on what has to happen to work remotely, that you've gotten your head around the psychology of it, it can be a really enjoyable experience. So the pendulum actually swung the other way, where I was overqualified for a lot of jobs because, can do that, can use all those tools, and it can pop on off to these meetings, and get the work done in between. And so that I think a lot of people have experienced. And plus now a lot of people who are, now looking to move out of Dublin, who would never have thought they would have been possible, are looking to do it. So I started a new position in the middle of COVID after 10 years working for myself. So I'm now a conversation design strategist.
Very good. Excellent.
That falls into the era of job titles that didn't exist before.
Yeah. The interesting thing, as you say, is that what was perhaps a disadvantage in the job market before now, i.e. a preference and an ability to work from home, is now an advantage, and you're finding that playing to your strengths from that point of view. Eoin,
I think it was a management. It used to be a management problem because they didn't know how to manage people, or somebody had a perception of it. What happened with COVID was everyone had to work from home, so they just had to get on with it.
Eoin, congregation.ie is the website. We encourage everyone to go there. The submissions are being accepted right now on the theme of Society 3.0, and you'll find more instructions on how to actually do that on the website. And the event itself then is going to be the virtual huddles, the virtual getting together. That's on what date in November?
That's on November the 21st. And we'll also be doing the poetry open mic, and we're hoping to do a stand-up session that evening as well.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, I have to say, Eoin, I will miss going to Cong this year, and I have been for many of the last 7 or 8 years been present at Cong and enjoyed it hugely, but I'm looking forward to participating remotely. And to you and to everyone else that's involved, thanks for continuing to do this, and the very best of luck. Stay safe and take care.
Thank you very much, Con. Stay safe.
That's Eoin Kennedy, organiser of Congregation. You can find out more at congregation.ie. As I mentioned, the Black Knight podcast is back. It's where we talk about work, we talk about domains and hosting and things like that that are more technical and business related. And if you're interested in that, you can find out more at blackknight.blog/podcast. And this week's episode is all about the new .gay top-level domain name and how they are building a hate-free zone on the internet. Sinna bhfuil don trásá go dtíon chéadar eile, slán agus benacht.